Good morning, guys. Welcome to this Wednesday, February 26th. Couple of more days of February, and then we're going to be in March next week. Man, the 2 months. We got like 8 months to Christmas, 9 months to Christmas, right? That's to freak you out. Anyway, looking at the markets so far overnight, actually the close yesterday was not too bad. It was a little bit of weakness, and then they retraced it, and in the overnight popped and managed to stay up here in this upper range. So modestly optimistic that we may have seen the end of the selling. At least modestly optimistic about it. I'm not going to quite. We're still in the move out of the middle to the downside. If today's trading doesn't extend to the downside, I think we're going to be in good shape to potentially start building value, maybe even see a little bit of strength building. But that's kind of where I'm at in this whole thing. So a few days of pretty violent selling. Now we have a little bit of news today, but but also we have Nvidia earnings coming out after the close today, and that's going to be, I mean, everyone's watching that, and it's going to be a big deal. So depending how the market reacts to that information, that earnings report is going to they basically decide if Thursday is going to be yet another ugly down day, or if it's going to be a nice little rally. So that's pretty much how it's going to go. News this morning, though, we had mortgage apps come out at 7. It was a little bit mixed bag on that. Nothing super crazy. I think it was a little bit to the downside overall. We have new home sales at 8:30. No, sorry, not 10. At 8:30 we have a Fed speaker, but at 10 o'clock we have new home sales, and at 10:30 we get an oil report. That's about it. What else do we got? 7-year auction at 1. So. And not a whole lot of news. I don't think the new home sales or oil reports are really going to do much, unless there's some kind of odd surprise in there. But the way they came out usually doesn't do a whole lot. So chances are we're going to be chances are we're going to see either a range bound or a down day. That's what I'm thinking. If there for some reason, because I mean actually. There's one caveat in this, and that's the managed to pass this big beautiful bill kind of thing with all the Trump priorities. They passed that to the House, and that was a big hurdle. I mean, they had one vote majority. So if the market had, if you remember the issue that we're not going to get tax cuts, the market is selling off that argument. Well, that's not there anymore. If they pass that one, I think that was one of the bigger hurdles for them to get passed. So. That could be a positive sign for the market. So that could actually turn us into a little bit of a rally if that's kind of what they've been driving behind the scenes. So today's going to be an interesting start. I mean, right now the overnight is to the upside. I'm going to start off range bound. I'm going to watch this lower edge at a 59.80 below that one. I'm going to lean in on the short side. I think above the 6,015s, I'm going to lean in on the long side. That's kind of the way I'm not lean in, but I'm going to start thinking long side of the market at that point. So looking to get short again 6,000, 6,010, 6,015s. Looking to buy against the 59.90, 59.80s for rotations back up. And if they trade outside of that range, we'll see if the market's going to be more of a bullish tone to it, and then we may see a little bit of retracement to the upside, or if we're going to see another probe to the downside, which means that the 80s comes out and they start running this lower. As always, the one level outside the obvious would be the 5970s and the 6025s, and we always include those as a potential, just a probe failing at those levels. But given the Nvidia earnings, I think the market may be more in a holding pattern, waiting for that than the net selling. Now, if anything, I think the net selling is probably has the weighs more on the decision this morning. So if you're going to get further selling, that's probably the more likely option. But they have 3 days of pretty good selling. They have taken this down pretty hard from the 6130s all the way down here to these lower support areas. And at this point, I'm thinking that we may have seen the low. I mean, we may see a retest of this low, the 5900 in today's trading, and that would be a pretty good scare, I would say. But that would just imply that the bears are not quite done yet. So we'll see how this develops. But if this starts trading below that 5980s, One level outside the obvious, 59.70s. I would start thinking a short side of the market, looking for a short for a retest, at least at that 35 level. That 35 level is pretty good. And I would look to buy against 35s, 25s, 59.05s, these support areas, but a lot of caution at that point. At that point, if they get down here pushing the lows again, and not going to be super aggressive, just waiting for a good setup and a trigger for the potential long trade. And on the way up, if they start clearing that area, the 6,015s, and starts trading up in this area, if they can clear that 6,045s, I would be a lot more feeling a lot better about the long side of the market. At this point, as I said, looking to get short against the 6,000, the 6,010 and the 15s. Now they have a few more levels here on the way up. One level outside the obvious would be the 6,035s. And if they clear that one, we have a few more above the 6,045 here. They get up about that level. I think we are back on the long side of this. But so this whole area, congestion, looking for short setups on the way up here. And even if they start grinding this to the upside, there could be long trades in there on the way up at that point. But as I said, I would still be looking for shorts against these resistance areas. So it is volatile, and you just never know what is going to drive the market, at least today, because you've got this big NVIDIA news come out after the close. Then you have the big bill they just passed. That could be a factor in it. Then you always news coming out as they keep doing new stuff. So there is a lot of stuff. They say this the tariff discussion with Mexico and Canada, that's still on the table. There's a few more days left and that kicks back in again, and that hasn't been resolved. So that could be another thing which pops up. So a lot of cross currents, but I'm going to start off range bound. If anything, I would favor the short side to get started, given what's happening in the last 3 days. So looking for shorts against the 6,000, 6,010, 6,015s for rotations down. Looking to buy against the 90s and the 59.80s for rotations back up. So a range bound in that range. Below the 80s, looking for that move to the downside, maybe retest that low. One level below the obvious if the 70s. And on the upside, one level above the obvious is the 6,025s. And the reason I always include that is just because these resistance areas are pretty obvious, right? And most people are going to be, which are not paying attention to the bigger picture, they're going to hop on the long side when they break out of this range right there. They're going to try the long side, hop on, and most of them are going to find themselves buying right into that resistance area. So if they're probing it, if there's no real buying behind it, they'll get right up there and then fail. And the same thing happens on the downside. People hop on the short side and they sell right into that support area, and rest find themselves caught and then getting all crushed. So that's the market for you. So that's how we get started on the ES. Looking at the NASDAQ and the bonds. So the bond market is, so if you wonder what's snoring behind me, that's my dog. God. It's like, that's a snore and a half, isn't it? Anyway, so the bond market, they were in big move up here, running it up to in a flight to safety based on the last few days of selling. So far, they're kind of holding on there, not necessarily extending a whole lot in the overnight. They backed off a little bit, then retraced it all the way right back up again. And as you can see, we are right up here against this high volume area now. They start taking this higher. I think the market may not be done on the indices may still have some downside left. So rotation into the equities, definitely a sign that people are flying to safety, at least temporarily. This part of the year, though, in February into March, you usually get the sell-off. It happens more than often. You have a lot of weakness in yes this exact time frame. So I would not be completely afraid of putting on positions. You'll be looking at getting some stocks on sale. This is the time to look for them. So I mean, a few of these stocks has been just absolutely creamed. So worth hopping on there. So looking at the bonds, I would start off on the long side, looking to buy weakness at the 1720s, 1712s, down to the 1705s. Rotations back up. If they trade below that 1705s, take off the long bias, look for retracement trade at that point. And on the way up, not going to be very aggressive. The only short I'm looking at right now is the 26 to 28, this resistance area. Above that, maybe the 118s is an obvious even number. But after that, not going to be very aggressive on the short side. Basically, I think they're extending to the upside at that point. So we'll see. NASDAQ is the one to watch for today. We have the NVIDIA earnings come out, and that's going to be a big deal for the NASDAQ. And if there's a surprise to the downside of some sort or a disappointment in the report, oh boy, I'm thinking that we're going to see some ugliness develop in the NASDAQ. And you may see it harder than you might want pullback in that. If it's a good report and the reaction is positive, I think they can drag the whole freaking market with it. So we will see. But at this point, looking to starting off a little bit to the upside, holding right at that 21,200 level. We talked about that several times before. Nice volume edge on the way down. Nice high volume area. They stalled there on yesterday's trading. They're holding above it. So if they can retrace a little bit, and they kind of had to get up above this 440s for me to get excited about the long side again. So I'm going to be looking for short setups against the 330s, the 400s, the 450s for rotations back down, and looking to buy against the 250s and the 200s for rotations back up, maybe down to that 150s. But if they start heading below this 200 level, I think we may see another retest towards the lows. We still have a couple of support areas to pay attention to, but I'm thinking that if Nasdaq is going to show selling into the number, that would be they'll take out that 200 level, and I would just stay on the short side and see how far they want to push it at that point. Because remember, the day session starts and they keep going a few bars, and then suddenly the whole fucking thing goes sideways. That's absolutely not sideways. It goes straight down because they just absolutely lean into it. So there we have it. So looking for shorts, well, looking to sell early strength on the way down, and then once I'm looking to buy against it's 250s, 200s down to that 150s rotations back up. Below 150, I think there's confirmation that we may be pushing this lower. We still have a good edge here at the 110, so it may hold. So just be mindful that you don't buy into any of these support areas. I think the better buy would come in at the 21 or 30. We'll see how weak it's going to get if they're going to try to push this lower. So this setup we have going into today could very well be a little bit of early strength, and then you're going to see that weakness develop throughout today. So, but I'm going to start off range bound on the ES with a slight bias to the downside. Same story with the NASDAQ. Probably a little bit more bearish on the NASDAQ right now, given how violent that has been selling off. But that NVIDIA report could certainly turn everything around. And on the way up on the NASDAQ, as I said, the early strength, we're looking for shorts against the 330s, the 400s, and that 440 level for rotations back down. All right, so that's the NASDAQ to get started. So big question today, are we going to get continuation to the downside? If it turns into more of a range-bound kind of a trading day, that would be a good sign that the absolute free-for-all selling is kind of past us, and the market is kind of looking for a spot to maybe make a turn. Gold, they're holding below this support area right now, below that 29.30. So that means I'm going to start off with on the short side of gold. Kind of unusual, right? Because they've been building value here on the long side for quite a bit, but big move to the downside. They retraced it pretty good, but they still haven't traded up above this edge, so they're holding right at or below it. And so looking for shorts against the 29.30s, 36s up to that 41s, rotations back down. And if they trade above 41s, you go back on the long side because we're heading right back here to the 29.50s at that point. So looking for potential reverse retest on gold for a move to the downside, and we'll see how that develops. So that's an interesting one because gold has been extended quite a bit, and I mean these guys could certainly they're due for a pullback, but there's been net buying going on still. So far no pullback. So we'll see how that develops. But at this point, looking to sell strength for rotations back down, looking to buy against the 22s, the 17s. This one I'm going to drop, but that's a little bit down to that edge. to the 2910s, 2905s, down to the 2900s. I would say below the 2905s. I think we are definitely heading lower at that point. I mean, and I would be pretty much on the short side of this below the 2920s. And but there's still support here at the 2910 and 2905s, which I had to contend with. But they could be a pretty good move to the downside. And where are they going to go? If they start moving lower, we have this attractor down at 28.85. So that's a good $60 to the downside almost. So from where we are right now. So that could be a pretty good move to the downside. It's 30, 80, 45 bucks, 45 bucks. So that could be a pretty good move to the downside. And but that would be the attractor they would run to if they start taking this lower. So we'll see how that develops as well. All right, so that's gold. And then finally oil. Nice move to the downside on oil yesterday. Maybe we're finally going to start seeing some of this development to the downside. So not surprising that that's happening. It's going to keep happening. And I heard actually finally someone talking about the $50 target on oil. So that's what kind of the initial target, I guess, where they're trying to take it. So somewhere between 40 and 50 bucks a barrel, I think, is where they're trying to get prices on oil. And just watch it start coming down. So unless they have geopolitical risk pricing in, then it's going to be pretty good. If they can put the nail in the coffin on that Ukraine war, I think oil comes down pretty darn quick. So we'll see how that develops. But at this point, I would start off range bound. I would keep a bias to the downside on oil. If they take out that 67s, definitely stay on the short side. But at this point, we're in this tractor area, so chances are we're going to go sideways here for a little bit. So I would not be surprised if this retest out of the 6860s probes a bit to the downside. I don't think maybe down to the 69 or 67, sort of 67.90 to 68. But if it's if it holds that 6860 level, we might just see a little retracement on these single prints on that move to the downside. And that would be a potential long trade. So if they start taking out that 6930s, I would hop on the long side and see if they can retrace this all the way up here to the 70s. Could be a nice long trade in there. But that would be as a pure technical type trading thing. You're looking at really retracing this area, which basically got run over on the way down. And so a chance that we're going to be building value in this range for a little bit at least. All right. So trade oil from the short side to get started. Watch that level 6930 that comes out. Hop on the long side and see if they can retrace it to the upside. Finally, back to the ES. And yeah, kind of where we left it, a little bit of strength showing up. So let's see if this big bill now is really what was driving a lot of the selling, this fear that they wouldn't get it done. We may see this day turn into more of a range bound day. It may actually turn into a little bit of a positive day. So I'm going to keep my options open. So today could go either which way. Just have to watch the market and see what they're trying to do. All right, we'll wrap it there for now, guys. So good trading. And I will see you guys back at 11:30 for the next update. All right, guys, later. Good trading. Jeez, there you go. Good trading. Trading is when the trading doesn't work well. That's what that is. All right, guys, later.